Happy Sunday, everybody. Welcome to a special edition of In Conversation with me, your host, Nyki Elle. As you can tell, it is going to be a voting focused episode. So I'm excited to have my cousin who will be joining us. He is a political analyst. He has worked in a number of different capacities within New York City political system. Trying to get this set up right. Within the New York City political system, he currently works for the Attorney General of New York State, Letitia James. Shout out to Tish. She's a Bison. HU. She also goes to my church, so shout out to Emmanuel Baptist Church. So we have lots of things in common. But yes, thought it was really important to sit down and have this conversation today just about politics, about the election, and to really, really encourage you guys to vote if you have not already. If you're still trying to decide if you're going to vote, hopefully this will encourage you to do so because this election is super important. So I'm going to go ahead and loop in Troy. Let's see. And here we go. Hi, guys. Thanks for joining. I see Mom. Hello. I see Reese Guy. Hey, thanks for joining. Hey, Troy.
Hey, what's up?
How are you?
I'm good. I'm good.
Good. Happy
All
Sunday
right.
to you. Oops, let me.
Happy Sunday.
My fault. Okay. Good. So, how's everything going for you lately?
It's been a few challenges um, at certain areas and certain poll sites.
Yeah.
Just being out there on the ground and looking and just seeing what's going on in different areas. But for the most part, I think now people are getting into the groove of um, keeping the lines down at some of the early voting sites.
Yeah.
I went and voted today, actually.
Woo!
Um,
That's
yeah,
a sticker.
yeah. I got my sticker,
Yes. I have my.
my early voting bracelet, or
Oh, I
whatever.
split. Boo.
Yeah, that they were giving that in Washington Heights because
Okay.
I live at the end of Manhattan in the Marble Hill area,
Okay.
and my early voting site uh, is in Fort Washington at the Armory. I
Okay.
thought it was in the because where I normally would vote would be at my old high school, John F. Kennedy High School. Shout out to JFK. Um, and there's a school called Intech that's right next to it. So they had an early voting site. But I believe that was just for residents of the Bronx. And being that I'm in Manhattan, my early voting site was at the Armory. So I hadn't been to that neighborhood in a while. I used to work in that neighborhood, and I grew up somewhat in that area because
Okay.
I like one of my first jobs was right across the street at the Columbia Library, neuroscience library. So it was cool. I thought it was going to be stressful, long lines, but I was in and out. And then I
Oh,
seen some people I hadn't seen in a while because that was actually one of the first poll sites that I worked as a teenager when I
oh,
was a poll worker. Yeah. So, it was cool to be back in that neighborhood.
that's good. Thanks everybody for joining. I see Moet. I see Spice Lady BK. Someone else said something. Let me see. Somebody else. I can't quite see. But thank you guys for joining. Oh, Captain Entanglement. Um, okay. So let me see if I can post this. Pin this real quick. Pin it,
Yep.
pin it. There we go. Great. So, in conversation with Troy. So, I'm gonna start out with this little game that I totally made up in my head. Anybody who's watching, if you would like to throw some scenarios out, feel free. But it's called Good Idea, Bad Idea. And we're gonna do election related things. Feel free. So, after you answer, you can explain why a little bit. If you guys have any more. Oh, my dad just joined. He said, Yo, cuz.
Yeah. What's up, cuz?
So, thank you guys so much for joining today. Okay, good idea, bad idea. Taking your kids with you to vote on election day.
I mean, it could be a good idea to show them the process, depending on the age. I see some people coming with babies, which is cool, as long as, I mean, before
Yeah.
COVID 19, it probably would have been cool. But now, you know, that we're exposed to this virus, um, I don't think it's a good idea unless you're going as a family, you know, where you have both parents there at the same time, which you should be doing, especially in this election. Uh, so
Yeah, let's see.
yeah,
Depending on the age, Daryl said, great idea. Cool.
yeah.
Did you ever go and vote with your mom or your dad when you were younger?
Yeah, I mean, my first experience to voting in the election process from a
Hmm.
grassroots level was through my mother.
Okay.
That's how I got involved in politics. Yeah.
Nice. Yep, I remember when I would go with my mom. I mean, I didn't really know what was going on. I just remember like we went in the booth, and I think at that time there was like a curtain. You had to close the curtain,
Hmm.
pull the knobs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Okay, next one.
Okay.
Repping your candidate as you go to the poll. So like a shirt, a hat, a button. Good idea.
Absolutely. Absolutely. As long as you have something to cover it up when you go inside, a
Okay,
jacket. In
that's what.
November, we don't have to worry about that. In the summertime, just turn it inside out and go inside and vote.
So there's
But you're
is
not supposed to have any, you cannot have any electioneering within 100 feet of a polling site. So no palm cards out. You're supposed to put it, you know, look at it, put it in your pocket, and continue on to do your process. Now you can pull it out when you're voting in the private booth so that you can look at it.
oh
And yeah, so that, you know, that's mainly for people who like, there was somebody else on that line.
mhm.
Let's say it's line A would be the Democratic line and this particular election. And most people just vote all the way down. But I think it's important to look at each electoral position. So if it's from your president on down, you should be making sure that you cast those votes. And some people don't know sometimes. They do explain it inside the polls, but people tend to forget. They're anxious to vote and want to make sure that the process goes smoothly.
Right.
So they forget to turn it over, and that's usually where the judges are, or any ballot line questions,
Yeah.
whether it be ranked choice voting or something about schools or something like that, that you should also pay attention to.
Okay. Cool. So that you get
Yeah.
so much helpful information in that. That was one question, and it's everything.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Said, what is it? Electioneering, because I honestly
Yes.
word in the last week because as you know, I don't know if everybody else knows, I registered to be a poll worker here in New York. So I had to go through like hours of training. But they
Yeah.
taught me engineering, and I knew the act. I just didn't know that was the name of it. But that's essentially trying to promote, voting or a particular candidate. You said within 100 feet of the polling
Of
location.
the site.
Of the,
Yeah.
okay, okay.
I
And
mean,
go ahead.
oh, no. But like also, like that just comes from years of training and years of being part of the process.
Right,
It's just something like, it's like drinking water. It comes natural
right.
when talking about those situations. Yeah.
And then as far as just to confirm, as far as wearing something for your candidate, it's cool, but once you go in there, it has to be covered because that is considered election.
Correct.
Okay, cool.
Correct.
I see
Absolutely.
Couture. Hey guys, thanks for joining.
Hey.
All right, let's do one more. Hmm. Good idea, bad idea. Oh, let me see. We have a question first. Rhonda, my mom, asked, "Is that specific to New York? What you said in terms of wearing and
The footage wise may be a little bit different in other, but most states, like, you can't go in with any electioneering sort of material because it's supposed to be a bipartisan effort. Meaning, if you need help like inside of a poll, there's
mhm.
supposed to be a Democrat and a Republican
Yep.
there to make sure, like, just explaining it to you, not telling you who to vote for. So
Okay.
yeah, you're not supposed to wear any, we call it paraphernalia,
Okay.
inside of the poll sites. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Good idea, bad idea. Taking a selfie with your ballot.
I know that that actually was a issue a couple of years ago, especially like during President Obama's election during
Mhm.
the time that he served in both of his terms. People were taking pictures of their ballot that they voted. Um, I wouldn't suggest doing it. Just your ballot, your vote's supposed to be secret, and so I think that you know you can express who you voted for afterwards or beforehand. But I think when you're in the booth, it's like people do it, but I don't think it's a totally good idea to do that.
Okay. Cool. See, you answered that differently. I thought you were about to be like, no, no, you can't do it. It's a terrible idea.
No, I mean, I'm not because some people just, you're not supposed to do it. Because again, it's supposed to be a secret. When you're voting. Um, you, I mean, you can make it public who you support, but you know, the
Right.
ballot process, everybody. Because then, if you're taking a selfie and you're not a certain next to someone else who's voting, they may not want people to know who they're voting. So,
Right.
cameras and stuff typically are banned. Like you're not supposed to take pictures while you're voting or while other people are voting inside.
Okay.
So yeah, cameras are not supposed to be allowed inside. You can take it like from a distance at the
Mhm.
door, like the press or something like that. But then also that has to get approval of the coordinators that are inside the poll sites.
Got it. Okay. Let's see, Miss Moet said, good to know because I take a pic of myself in the booth, but I don't post it. I post the I voted sticker that's given to me. Yeah. Cool.
That's a good idea. I mean, yeah,
Yeah, that's a good
you
idea.
can do that.
I, I did it afterwards. I dropped my absentee and I called our friend and I was like, hey, you're really close. Can you come take this picture of me? So I took a picture. Um,
Yeah.
anything else while we're on this topic that people should kind of know or be aware of? Because there's some stuff that people didn't know in terms of electioneering and all that. Any other things you can think of? Kind of.
Um, I mean, it's just, I would say when you're going to vote, try to understand that everybody's one, the people inside have a job to do, and then two, just be patient, especially during this time. Um, you know, just be patient and go along with the process, and you'll soon find out exactly what it's all about on Tuesday when you're working the polls.
Yes.
Um, I haven't worked the polls, I mean inside. Like my first job was at the Board of Elections, my first political job, anyway. So I've done everything from counting ballots to um, fixing machines. And when we had the old lever machines, I
Yep.
worked in the warehouse and stuff like that. So, you know, I would just say when you go vote, be enthused. I'm seeing like a lot of people are clapping as people are leaving. So that makes you feel good, that you did something noble for that day. So I would just say the main thing would be have patience when going to vote.
Yeah.
That people should definitely look at,
And I think to that end,
especially with the lines and stuff. Yeah.
that's what I was gonna say. I would say to that end, like I think people need to plan a bountiful window of time. I don't know if that's the best way to describe it. I mean, from what
Yeah, especially yeah. I mean, by law here in New York, you're supposed to have I believe it's 2 to 3 hours
okay.
um, of time to go vote if you're working. But of course, now during this is extra strenuous because of the virus
Yep.
and the magnitude of this pandemic. So this is all new to everyone
Mm-hmm.
who's new voters as well as old voters, as well as the new poll workers and old poll workers. Um, it's a different process completely for the political process to be played out.
Yep, I agree. So definitely plan time. From what I've seen, like I said, there's an early voting site right across the street, and last week was the first day on Saturday, and the line was literally around the block. Like the door is right here, the front of the line and the back of the line were right at the door. So
Yeah,
just plan ahead. I mean, the good thing is that so many people are voting early, so hopefully that will lessen it. But you never really know about the wait.
yeah, yeah. That's true. I mean, you can't predict anything could happen. Machines could break down. That was been my experience. Like when I worked at the, that's why they got rid of the old lever machines because they were always breaking them down. But we always had the tools and stuff to come out and fix them. They would be up in like the next, hopefully within that 45-minute window. So
Oh,
we would travel by private car service around to different sites during that time when I did that sort of work
oh wow.
to fix the machines within record times. I mean, they they tend to dump on the Board of Elections because of the way it's ran here in New York,
Mm-hmm.
particularly. But unless you've been there and worked inside, it's easy for someone, as they say in the ivory tower, to look down and say, these are the problems. Give us the money, give us the resources, is what I've always been hearing from that agency
Yeah,
since I've worked there, since I've worked at the council, and I worked in the city council where they come and testify and ask for more money from the city.
yeah.
And I worked in for a Congress member, and they asked for money there. I worked in the state. They asked for money there. So it's like money may help fix this problem, but we have to be willing to do that.
Mhm.
But some people want to reform it to look sort of like the campaign finance board. But it's a different system. It's a different group of people. So I don't know if that model may work or may not work, but I think we definitely have to figure out a way to reform some of those things. But I wouldn't just sit there and blame it all on that particular agency when they are responsible to keep the elections running, and they tend to do that. It's a process.
Right.
And knowing what I've known, like we used to work 12 to 12. That means 12 in the afternoon and 12 at night, 9 to 9, 9 in the morning and 9 at night. So it's not like people were lacking. The people were working during that time and preparing. But now, especially during this pandemic, you know, there are things that people didn't expect that happened, and so we'll see. We'll see.
Okay.
But I have faith in the
Yes,
board that they'll get it done.
yes. Okay, we have two questions. The first one, have you ever observed anything major? Have you ever observed anything of major concern at the polls?
Well, I mean, over my time and my probably since I was 18 to now and working the polls in some form, whether it was with a candidate or with inside the Board of Elections. Typically, you may have crazy candidates who are running for office going in there cursing people out.
In the
I know that they had inside the polls, yeah, because they may be of a different party that may not be the same party that the majority of the people may be voting for. So they get upset if there's if they think that any issues are arising in those, excuse me, in those sites. I just I've seen a lot of crazy things. I've seen people, you know, try to steal ballots. Um, I've seen people try to do all sorts of things to disenfranchise the process. Um, but that we've gotten through that. In my lifetime, I haven't seen like real major racial things.
Mhm.
Um, but I've seen like along party lines, people get very nasty
Mhm.
when it comes time to voting. Like there may be a Republican who got to the voter first, and the voter may not know um, who to vote for or whatever. And they're like, "Oh, you should vote this line," because they're trying to ramp up their party. Whereas they were supposed to say, "Wait a minute, let me get the other." My other colleague who's a Democrat, and
Oh,
both of us can explain the process.
day.
So yeah,
Okay,
it's supposed to be two people when it comes time for stuff like that. When issues arise.
got it. Okay, next question's from Benique. Hey, Benique. I see Kiera. I saw James. So thank you guys for joining. Benique says, hey guys, on election day, is there anything we can do about being harassed at the polls? Trump has been encouraging his followers to be poll watchers.
Yes, we have a hotline in our office that you can call, and the New York State Attorney General is on our website.
Okay.
because I work for the New York State Attorney General at the moment. Letitia James, she's the first African American woman to be elected to statewide office.
Awesome.
So that was an exciting process. So yeah, we have a number, a hotline you can call our office, and we are encouraging folks not to do those sort of things, but we're also the agency tasked with protecting voters' rights. And our phones have been blowing up, and
Wow.
not so much in the city, but in other areas of the state, because we cover the whole state of New York, and we have about 19 offices between our regional offices and our satellite offices
Okay.
throughout the state of New York. So there's a hotline on our website at New York State Attorney General, the Office of Attorney General,
Okay.
that you can call, and the Board of Elections has numbers as well. And there's usually someone there that can pick up the phone. And I know on election day, particularly, there's a lot of judges that will be on hand for cases like that, where there's voter suppression happening throughout the state of New York.
Cool. Do you know if I know you're sure on New York because obviously we're in New York, but in other states,
Yeah,
the Attorney General's office also be
yeah,
like that?
yeah.
Okay.
Would be, or the Board of Elections, or the
Okay.
clerk's office, or something to that magnitude, in terms of voter suppression,
Okay.
because there's laws on the books in every state, as well as the federal government, to protect that right.
Okay. Cool. Let's see. Daryl said, I recommend people bring a seat to sit on, something to munch on, and a headset with music to listen to. So going back to having a plan and just
A-
anticipate the wait, that sounds like a good thing for elected day.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. So we're going to pause the election day talk, and I want to flip and talk just about you, Troy, and your journey. You know, you said your mom was sort of who first exposed you to politics, but can you just tell us sort of where you're from, how you got into it, and the many roles? I know you've held many different positions within city and state government, and if you could just share
Hmm.
about your background.
Yeah, sure. So my mom, like I said before, my mom, shout out to Tanya,
Yeah.
Latanya, Sugar Mama on Instagram. Yeah, so she introduced me to the grassroots level process, and I didn't. I was just like, oh, it's just something to do. I see my mother walking around with these green papers, getting signatures for different candidates. Like we started out at the Tioga Democratic Club up in Harlem. I'm from Harlem. I was born and raised in Harlem. And then my family moved to the end of Manhattan, because some people don't, it's in the Bronx, but it's technically the end of Manhattan, which is Marble Hill.
Mm,
And my family, I was raised here as well as my dad's family is from Riverside Drive. Shout out to Riverside, and shout out to Harlem for sure.
Harlem.
Yeah. So, I'm a Harlem boy, and I started out on a grassroots level, giving out leaflets, giving out, getting signatures for different candidates throughout my time, in that process. Um, I've worked, again, I started out at the Board of Elections, and then from there I moved on to the New York City Council, and I worked for two different members in the council at that time, which was Maria Baez, who was in the Bronx, who represented the 14th Council District. Shout out to the 14th Council District. And then I worked for Inez Dickens and the New York City Council in Harlem. Shout out to Harlem again, and shout out to the Ninth Council District, which I ended up ultimately running for. But I guess I didn't know enough about the process to run in a special election, because I didn't make the ballot, but I got the signatures and did the process, and maybe something to look into in the future, but I'm not too sure about that. I'm just doing the job that I have at the moment, which is working for the New York State Attorney General's office, and it's been a journey. It's been a process. I worked in a congressional office, Congressman Adriano Espaillat, who's actually on the ballot this year, and Inez Dickens is in Harlem, and my district is Carmen de la Rosa. And those are my assembly people: Robert Jackson in the state Senate, Brian Benjamin in the state Senate in Harlem. And I'm part of the Harlem political family. We have our own issues internally, but we getting past that because we have to stick together, especially during these times. So, yeah, that's been my journey in terms of politics and working in government. I worked on a city, state, and federal government levels. So I've been doing it now for about 17 years.
Wow.
In some shape, form, or fashion. Yeah.
So,
So, I've been sticking with it. I think it's a very important process. I've worked on the legislative side. I've been a deputy chief of staff. I've been a campaign manager. I've been um, an advocate. I've been a community organizer. I've been in community outreach, what I do now, as well as do some investigative work for the attorney general at the moment. But I I had started a campaign sort of consulting company when I was probably like 25.
wow.
But when I got here, I had to put that on the back burner because this is a nonpartisan agency that I work for, and so I just have to do my job, and that's pretty much it at the moment. Um, but every day is a challenge, and I'm up for the challenges that come my way. I see a few questions.
Yes. Moet said Harlem stand up.
That's right.
And I knew I was waiting for you to do that. I was waiting. Uh, Rhonda said, where would you like to go in politics from here?
At the moment, I haven't really made a decision. I'm just waiting to see what the climate is. Next year, we have the mayor's race coming up in New York City, as well as city comptroller, and then those are going to be exciting races. Public advocate is up, and New York City Council is up. I believe a few district leaders, which are low level people on grassroots level, people on the ground in our communities that are very important positions to hold and have.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, but I haven't made any decisions. I'm just waiting to see what the climate's going to be in the next couple of years, and then we'll see if there's something else in my future
Yeah.
for sure.
Okay. Let's see. Daryl said, when's the attorney general going to put Trump in jail? Ha 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 ha.
We're working on it. We're working on it.
But what I think people may not know, I didn't know prior to now, is that at least here, because Trump is from New York has
Yeah,
juries to actually prosecute him, correct?
correct,
And it's your
correct. And his business, we're going after his what we're doing here.
yeah.
And not get into details, but we're going after his business dealings that he had in the state for a number of years, shady business dealings that he's had, and we've been winning some of those cases in court. And Tish has been steadfast on making sure that no stone is unturned when it comes to that process.
Nice. Okay, cool. Another question from Kiera. What's been the most rewarding part of working in politics for you? It's a good question.
Helping the people. I think knowing that you're making a difference every day in the work that you do, especially when I worked in the legislative offices, which was in the city council and the state assembly and the congressional office. Um, when I learned the full process and worked in the council and then worked closely with former Congressman Charlie Rangel for a long time, um, I've learned the reward is making sure that the organizations are being funded at a record high. And I was lucky enough to have two women that I worked with in the city council, which was Inez Dickens and Maria Baez that got record number funding because they knew how to negotiate very well in City Hall for their districts. And so I was fortunate enough to learn and be trained by those women. Shout out to all the women out there because they're the ones who really make it happen. And I've seen that firsthand.
Yeah. Have you noticed a difference in the amount of women in politics from when you started 17 years ago to now?
Oh yeah, for sure, for
Yeah.
sure. They have this thing now in the city council where it's 21 and 21, which means 21 women being supported by this organization to be elected to the city council in 2021.
Oh,
Yeah, so those are things to look for. I think a lot of I've seen a lot of women join the ranks as in the woman I work for now, where there was no women at the top.
yeah.
Other at the first woman to be elected was the lieutenant governor, I believe,
Mm,
elected statewide, and then Tish was the first African American woman, first African American statewide.
cool.
Yeah, so there's been a record number, but still more work to do
Yep.
for sure.
Have you, aside from women being more active, what changes have you seen either, I guess, representative candidate side or even people being more active in the political changes and have you seen?
I've seen a lot of young people
Hmm.
start joining the ranks and realizing that even if they come in at a young age and work their way up, they'll know that there's a reward at the end of that for a lot of them that have stuck it out
Mm-hmm.
through my time because I've been in this business again since I was 18, but like really entrenched in it when I was like 21.
Yeah.
And so I've seen a lot of people come and go. Some people didn't stick it out, and some people like you get young people in there, they're thriving to do something and to be something and make something of themselves, but not understanding they have to be part of the process. You can't just come in and have no training and say I want to be elected to something. So you have to get through the training and get through all the grunt work that it takes to make something of yourself. But I'm excited all the time when I see young people involved because that's the future.
Yep.
Someone one day they'll pass me the torch, and I have the torch to pass on, which I think I'm in a good position to do so at the moment
Yeah.
of where I am in my life.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we have another question from Norse Odinson. What advice can you give to millennials looking to get into politics? We need more diverse Senate. We need a more diverse Senate and Congress.
I would say volunteer. Definitely get out there and volunteer. Become an intern, even on a local level. That's how you get started.
Mm-hmm.
Your local council member needs a volunteer, or they need an intern. So, and that doesn't matter what age you are. If you're 18 and you're able to vote, and even if you're younger and you get permission from your parents and permission from your school to become an intern, I would say start interning, start volunteering
Yeah.
because college isn't for everyone. So those people who aren't in college, that doesn't mean you can't be part of the process. You can also volunteer, and the reward will come sooner or later. But I would definitely say volunteer, intern. That's a big part of the process, and you learn a lot from that.
Yep. And in addition to learning, I think you also meet people who are coming up like you. So similar to you, I'm not sure exactly how it happened for you, but there's
Yeah,
people.
there's a lot of young people that I try to mentor during my time, and I've been mentored by a lot of folks during my time in politics and in this process in government, because government is big, but it's important, and you have to know how to navigate that. So Yeah, it's always exciting to see, like I said, young people involved and engaged. It's always exciting to see that.
Yeah. So on the other hand, on the other side of people who want to be involved in terms of running for office, I guess what are some words of encouragement, or not words of encouragement, but like tips or things you can say for people who just want to be more involved in general? Because I think I am definitely one of the people, and I don't know if I'm the only one, but sometimes when you think about politics, it's just like, oh my gosh, it's so much. It's so much. It's complicated. I'd rather not. But obviously, we can't take that stance. So for people looking to just like be more engaged or learn a little bit more about the process, what are some tips you'd have for that?
I would say look into your local representatives, see what type of events they're having. Attend some of those events.
Mm-hmm.
Join your local community board or precinct council, or be active in your community. Join some of these organizations, these not for profits that need help. Not just government and politicians, but these local organizations out here that are doing the work in the community, because they're the lifeline to the community, for the essential services that are needed. So I would say get involved in that way if you don't want to be attached to a particular party or a particular candidate or a particular elected official. Um, Join some of the boards on some of these organizations, and if you don't find politics, politics will find you.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Um, so you had mentioned something earlier about, some people just like jump into the election and just like want to run for office immediately, but may not know a lot. That kind of made me think about two people. It made me think about Donald Trump, but also about like Kanye. So we know that Kanye is supposedly running in this election. How is his presence, his that he's voiced, how has that, I guess, or could it affect this election and the results, positive or negative?
I mean, typically, third party candidates usually don't succeed in this particular format,
Mm-hmm.
which is the presidential election. A, a person like Kanye, and seeing how close he is to the president, um, people just know, like, even the common person knows that's a joke. Like, it's not nothing to take seriously.
Right.
What it will do, it may cipher some votes from
Mm-hmm.
both candidates, because
Yeah.
in some cases there may be some black people that just don't feel or feel disenfranchised by the process, so they may be um, just voting out of spite for Kanye. And then there may be some folks who um, don't like what Joe Biden's saying, but know that if they vote for Kanye, it may help Donald Trump. If they may not want to vote for Trump, but they'll. And then some people just don't know. But him being there is not a help to us. It's not a help to the Democratic Party as a whole. Um, it's there to sort of siphon some votes away from the party.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a Democrat, and I've been a Democrat since I've been voting, and I work for Democratic members.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but to each his own. Um, I work for a nonpartisan organization, so I don't really talk that talk, but him just being in that election is just it's terrible. It's terrible. You know, he has. I'm not saying he doesn't have anything to offer. Musically, he's a genius, in my opinion. I like his music.
Yep.
Um, he has a good family, I presume. I know his mother was a wonderful individual,
Mm-hmm.
and he's a very smart young man, but he has trouble. And again, I just saw that the vice president nominee, Kamala Harris, was speaking about mental health, and that's a very important subject
Absolutely.
that needs to be tackled
Yep.
nationwide.
I agree. I agree. Hi to everyone who's joining. I saw Tara. I see Z. I saw Tanya join. What's up, cuz? Let's see. Daryl said, I would say it's never too early or too late to get involved. He's my dad. He won
Absolutely.
first political office just recently as like a rep within his district. So that was his comment. Next question. What financial literacy programs are being implemented to the youth? Why aren't students in our schools properly educated on money, money management, and investing?
That is something that I've been an advocate for since I've been in high school. I mean, a lot of people, a lot of my friends, new friends, and some of my older friends don't know that, when I was in high school, I was part of the student government. That was really my intro to politics as a whole, with the DOE and electing a new principal and stuff like that. And then ultimately, I became the president of my student body. And that's always financial freedom is something that us as minorities and black folks seek to get into. But I would say that we need our folks who are in that sort of businesses to come back to the community and put together some type of programming to help our youth out with that. And funding, again, on a federal, state, and city level is very important for those organizations that do that work already. And there's all sorts of programs, but you also have to be aware of scams and things like that. That's something else that I do in my capacity as the work that I do. I look for scams and frauds that are happening not only here in New York but nationwide as well as across the globe. And there's a lot. But in terms of the programming, that's something that we can do and push our local elected officials to invest in, as well as our elected officials on a federal level.
Yeah. Actually, to that end, I guess how would you, hey Tara, she said great dialogue. How would you, it seems like to me anyway, sometimes it's hard to when I think about getting in touch with an elected official, like whether it's local or, in Washington, like they say call the office, like is calling the office really effective? How can I like what are the effective ways to actually like voice concerns to elected officials and connect with them and say like this is important, you need to pay attention to this.
Okay. And I have an answer for that. As a person who worked in all of those offices on a local level,
Mm-hmm.
working in those district offices are very important. And I would say utilize those offices. That's what we're there for. Give us a call. They're things that are being worked out, and we get a lot of ideas from our constituents and people who call in. I think that it is very effective. And if when you call and they don't pick up, and when you call, then you have the opportunity to vote them out. So that's where you have the power in your vote.
Right.
Use this in your hand. Um, and then also, I would say look on their websites and see what events. Oh, they're having this event. We're going to show up there and we're going to tell them, give them a piece of our mind because
Mm-hmm.
we voted for them. We put them in there. They're there to work for us. And I think we should definitely, other communities do that and they hold their elected officials accountable.
Yeah.
And we should be doing the same thing in our communities because we put our people in there and we want them to do the right thing. That's very important. I think to utilize those resources for sure.
Yeah. Well, so that's good to know when you call or like by call, someone is actually taking note of what these people are calling about. They are looking.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
That you're supposed to be filling out some sort of form or sheet
Hmm.
and making sure that your voice is being heard on every level of government. Now, there may be different where it may not be a city issue, but it may be a state issue, and some people get lost in translation. Um, but that shouldn't stop you once you find out, okay, I know this is a state issue, but I called a city council member, let's say, and
Yeah.
they referred me to a senate office. Some people don't follow up and go to that senate office and
Okay.
follow up with that conversation.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, they just sending me around, they're giving me the runaround, and that's not what's happening. We all work in sync, and we all meet and discuss different issues across the board. And I think people should definitely utilize the tools that are out there. Um, you know, it's like taking, what was the saying, leading a horse to water. It can't make them drink it.
Yeah.
Um, so this is the same process when you're dealing with your local elected officials, and make sure that you hold them accountable for sure.
Okay. Well, you talked about, obviously, if they're not doing what we have put them in office to do, you can vote them out. So that
Vote
obviously,
them out. Vote them out.
yeah, and that shows that your votes have power. So, what would you say to those people who still, in this 2020 election are like, it doesn't matter if I vote, whatever, they don't care about me. What would you say to those people who are like, no voting?
If that was the case, our ancestors wouldn't have died for it. Um, that's something that they fought in the streets um, to have the right to do. And I think you should definitely utilize that right no matter what you may feel disenfranchised. And again, if you get a group of people, like there's a saying in Harlem, one finger, you can't do anything. But if you got five, you can make a fist. So I would say in terms of things like that, like saying there may be issues on your block, issues with a pothole, or issues with your building, or whatever it may be.
Mm-hmm.
Don't go by yourself. Say, oh, my neighbor is having the same issue.
Mm-hmm.
All of y'all go there, and when they see, it could be five people. If five people walk into any elected official's office in the city and state of New York, you're going to be heard. They're going to figure out how to, because those five people might represent 500 people, but come out in numbers. I wouldn't say, I mean, some things are personal and you want to deal on a personal level, and that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
But when there's major issues going on, come out in numbers for sure.
Okay.
And I would say your vote always matters. It always matters. That's why they're fighting so hard, and so much money is being poured into elections all over. And I've done elections not only in New York, but in other states, in other countries. Um, I was One of my partners was very helpful in helping elect a new president to the Dominican Republic.
Oh,
Um, and so, you know, you have to hold people accountable. And when you come out in record numbers, there isn't anything that you can't do. You
yeah.
know what I mean?
Okay.
That's why it's very important to vote. And I suggest that everybody goes to the polls
Yeah.
between now and Tuesday
Yep.
if you have early voting in your state.
Yeah. I second that 100,000,000%. Question: what changes can you hope to see happen in housing development? There seems to be more apartments available now, but the prices don't reflect what many people can afford. So that's here.
Right. So, in terms of housing here in New York City, um, how it's determined is by the AMI, the area median income. But we're encompassed. Not only do we have New York City, but we have Westchester County and some stuff from Bergen County in New Jersey, imagine, and in Long Island that are put into that formula that makes the numbers go up. But I think again, you know, when you elect a mayor, when you elect a governor, these are the people who help make these decisions. And over time, um, things in government you try to balance it out, where you need developers to develop new communities, but you also need the prices to be right so that you can attract people and not push people out from your city. I think that's the worst thing you can do is push folks out, because I know there was a big migration from here to Atlanta a number of years ago, where people left. And I would say if you have the opportunity to buy property where you can in the cities. And then, that's definitely something that we as government have to look into and been looking into in terms of housing across the state. and across the city. It's very important that when you see something, say something. When there's complaints, show up to those meetings. When there's the rent guidelines board, they vote whether to raise rent or not. Go to those meetings, and what happens is people go, they may pack it out one time, but then they get tired, they get disenfranchised, or they say, okay, we're going to put a rent freeze and that's it. No, you have to keep fighting. The fight continues.
Mhm.
So just keep fighting for everything that you have and everything that you want.
That's what I was to that end. I feel like just that one example of rent, I think with anything, like the fight continues. So whatever happens after the election, like either way it goes, there's still something else to fight for. There's still so much injustice in the country. There's still so much work to be done. So it's a marathon. It's not a race.
Correct. Absolutely. Shout out to Nipsey Hussle.
That's Nipsey.
R.I.P.
Let's see. So continuing with the housing, with NYCHA specifically, it seems that these buildings are forgotten, and the tenants in the community. So is that similar to what you're saying before about pushing?
Yeah, I mean, NYCHA has its problems. There are major problems in NYCHA housing across the city, and that's something that I know a lot of people have been fighting for, especially the people that I've worked with for a number of years. And they're older buildings; they have to be renovated. And I'm seeing some things happening in the Bronx when I drive through the Bronx, when I drive through Brooklyn, in certain areas, and when I drive through Queens and Manhattan. But there's still a lot of work that needs to be done, especially with NYCHA. There's a lot of work that needs to be done there, and the women that I've worked with have been doing their part, but others tend to neglect their areas and those areas of housing. But fortunately enough, the people I've been working with have been working hard to change that for sure.
Okay, cool. Next question from Tanya. What do you think about people who are felons and still believe they cannot vote?
That's just an education process. Um,
What?
people,
Uh,
they're actually, before COVID happened, I was working with one of my partners, who's an attorney, Joshua Irwin, to get records expunged and sealed so that those folks can be able to vote. Sort of similar to what's happening in Florida, where our former mayor, Michael Bloomberg, who I actually had the pleasure of working with when he was the mayor, tried to pay or was paying off some of the taxes and stuff that they had because they weren't able to vote in Florida. But people, it's an education process. Like, find out, no one's going to tell you, so it's up to you. Your ancestors died and fought for your right to vote, and so you have to keep that right. You have to hold that sacred. So you have to be responsible for yourself
yeah.
and finding out, exactly what's going on. And there's information out there on state websites and different things that people need to look into for sure.
Is it a different policy per state whether or not a felon can vote, or is
Yes.
oh, okay, so it changes.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. It's state,
Okay. Um,
which we can do something on a federal level, and that's something that we have to do when we have control of all branches of government.
yeah. Next question. How does someone know what meetings to go to or where to get updates? I keep hearing hold them accountable, but where should a concerned citizen go to remain informed? Such a good question. Thank you for that, because I feel the same way. I don't know where to go.
So it depends on what you're into. Like, what do you like? What do you want to get out of going to these meetings? Um, there's your local city council website. They have information on there. Your local assembly has information on their websites. Our office, the attorney general's office, we have go to their websites, see what's happening. And yeah, there's different links and things that you have to click on.
Yeah.
But again, it's your responsibility to want to be informed. The information is out there,
So is it
but you have to want to be willing. It depends on what you want to, what what do you want to see? What are you trying to get out of going to these meetings? Um, you, the information is definitely online for sure,
okay?
um,
Is
and
there
they're being updated on a weekly basis.
is there like a generic, like for example in New York, is
No,
that hey, if you
no.
found a like
I mean, like I again, I would say you should know who your local council member is, your local assembly member is, and your local state senate. Those three, I think you would be covered in your local congress member. Um, those four elected officials, you should definitely be on their website at least once a week,
Mhm.
looking to see what's happening. And I know now in this age of COVID, everything is being done virtually. And so there's information out there. Find out what their Facebooks are, their Instagram, their Twitter, all of this stuff is out there because I've been a staffer for a number of years on different levels.
Mhm. I think you froze. Okay. You froze a little bit. Can you just say the
Am I
last part
moving
of what
now?
you said?
Yeah,
Now you're good.
yeah, just going on those websites to find out exactly what's going on in your community. There's a lot of different community websites, and there's links on the your local elected officials. There's links on their websites to other organizations that you may want to be part of. So there's definitely information online, and for people who don't go on the computers, there's being information distinct, given in your local newspapers like Harlem Inc. or some of those different local papers. I'm not sure what they are. I know there's Carib News. Um, there's a number, Manhattan Times, the Amsterdam newspaper, that you can find information if you can't get onto a computer. And those some of those papers are normally free. You may find them in a bank or something like that when you go to the banks to deposit and take out money. They may be like local newspapers laying on the counters or something like that that you should pick up and read sometime.
Cool. Okay, so okay, we have about 2 minutes. I think we're about to get cut off.
Okay.
You want to rush this?
Okay. Cool.
Want to log back in real quick? I don't know what your schedule is like.
I'm fine with whatever you decide.
Okay, well,
I'm fine with.
it'd be more like, yeah, about 2 minutes. Okay,
Yeah.
so let's jump out, hang up, and jump back in. I just have a couple more things to talk to you about. So if you guys are able to join us, log back in. We're gonna come back like right now. I just don't want to get cut off in the middle of this important conversation. So thank y'all for joining. Hopefully we'll see you in a second.
All right.